and good afternoon. I'm really happy that you shared your time. Now I'm going to present myself. You already know I'm Pamelia Khaled. I'm a doctoral candidate in CTL, OISE, University of Toronto. So this is my first slide I'm presenting to you. I conducted an ethnographic study based in Bangladesh. Using my theoretical lens, I analyzed grade 10 students' perspective on the learning of science with regard to peace and conflict resolution. Classrooms in two contrasting streams of schooling I studied. This is a comparative study on religious and secular streams of secondary science education in Bangladesh. The main goal was to explore how science curriculum can contribute to peace in Bangladesh. The research questions the research questions were used to shed light on how students perceive their learning in the science curriculum by drawing on the pedagogy that teachers use for science curriculum, and to investigate if learners used science in their everyday lives in negotiating peace and resolving conflicts. Looking at Bangladesh's unstable socio-political background and current violence, killing and assault on science educators and science believers, I was interested in the possibility of promoting science through peace through science curriculum. And that prompted by my knowledge of the importance of science education in students' lives and the contribution of Islamic science to school science. My methodology was qualitative and ethnographic. Purposive sampling was used to select 24 grade 10 science students from the religious and secular streams. Data collection tools included classroom observation, interviews, focus group discussions, reflective field notes, and textbooks analysis. Six science teachers and two head teachers were consulted for contextual information and to corroborate findings from the students. Data were analyzed using an inductive approach. Information was also gathered from science textbooks. To describe about my theoretical framework, I'm switching my slides. Um, this is my conceptual framework. A conceptual framework was constructed from the literature on peace education, holistic curriculum, and science pedagogy. Tagore's holistic curriculum, his learning models were juxtaposed with Gandhi's nonviolence education, Dewey's experiential and collateral learning, and Miller's holistic pedagogy, transmission, transaction, and transformation approaches. The views of education scholars from the South and North were synergized in the conceptual framework of the dissertation to make contextual and socio-cultural sense to the local Bangladesh education system. I also used Robert's curriculum emphasis for textbook analysis. The ideas of teaching and learning educators from two different parts of the world helped me to design a theoretical framework for this study, which I have called the Integrated Theory of Pedagogy, ITP. Peace and conflict resolutions are the foundation of student-centered learning and pedagogy. Thus, ITP has established the importance of peace, which I explained in relation to my conceptual framework for my dissertation. Now I'm turning to discuss about findings and discussion. First, I'll overview of few findings, the key findings I have. There were distinctions in the teaching approaches between religious and secular stream. Religious school used interdisciplinary transaction approach level of teaching that focuses on subject connection, such as use of art and stories, including experimentation, while secular streams remain at a multidisciplinary level, which is limited to one subject content, that is transmission approach. Integrative curriculum requires a transdisciplinary level of teaching, which is holistic, a transformation approach. The study indicates that holistic pedagogy, Miller 2010, approach was absent in both streams. Both streams use textbooks and traditional teaching techniques, but the secular school teachers prefer to lecture from textbook directly because the textbooks analysis indicate why students of both streams were unhappy about the textbook, because the science content was too brief to understand, and most of the times teacher um, delivered their pedagogy from textbook. Students of both streams expressed the brief content made them hard to get a clear conception on the difficult topics, and it needs memorization. They wanted to see their teachers are teaching science using teaching aids and innovative ways, and they preferred hands-on activities in science teaching and learning. And awareness of conflict and tolerance in society was visible. To mitigate conflict among the students and different social groups, Bickmore 2011 has stressed peace-building education. Most of the students in both streams had an understanding to some extent of constructive conflict resolution and inclusive worldview in relation to peace, conflict, and tolerance in society, which could be seen as negotiated and positive peace. They could recognize how scientific knowledge and technology improved their daily lives. Nevertheless, most of the students in both streams believe that religious knowledge was the source of scientific knowledge. These could be described as the evidence of a hidden curriculum. So these findings response to research question 1. As I mentioned earlier, the religious school I studied did not have enough resources to teach science following Tagore's method of nature or implementing Miller's holistic curriculum framework. But the religious teachers were warm and eager to teach science practically using natural resources. Thus, it seems there is a great scope of teaching science following Tagore's comprehensive models of learning that promotes peace through science. I'm going to discuss a little bit more on the outcomes. You can read this interesting quote. In this slide, you can see how students feel about peace and negotiation. Secular students voiced and debated with parents about new scientific knowledge and socio-scientific issues more than the religious students could. Students of both streams mentioned that there are many things at home and society that are very difficult to handle, but they believed in maintaining peace. Nevertheless, most of the students in both streams believed that religious knowledge was the source of scientific knowledge. This could be described as negotiated peace, the evidence of a hidden curriculum. This rational and spiritual approach can be seen as a sign of progress and transformation and a way for constructive conflict resolution through science. The Arts 2006, um, he mentioned about that. And now we can look at another interesting quote from a teacher, how he feels about the origin of science. Students and teachers have existing knowledge, beliefs, and attitudes towards science and religion. But religious students could recognize that there is difference with the knowledge information about the origin of species and the origin of earth. So they were interested to know more. Teachers experienced tensions among their school and social context. They faced challenges and felt constraints discussing the conflicted issues in science with their students. During the interviews, despite their struggles, students and teachers expressed their views and the role of social science and socio-scientific issues and their constraints. Aikenhead 2010 and Sadler 2011 discussed on this regard. There were conflicts for the students in accepting evolutionary science among the religious students, since teachers and parents were religious and believed that the Quran was the source of scientific knowledge. That created a difficult um, in their understanding. But they were not telling that how they're resolving these issues. They're saying everything is fine. There is no conflict. That was interesting. Like, students, no, there is no conflict. It's from Quran, so there is no conflict. So uh, this made me interested to think how Islamic science can be implemented to for peace building in Bangladesh. So these findings responds to research question 2 and 3. Now I'm going to discuss on the implication of uh, for implication for peace education through science curriculum in Bangladesh. The content in the 3 science textbooks I analyzed showed no evidence of a peace component. That responds to research question 1, but there were a few contents I found that discuss the advantage and disadvantage of science. Those contents can be used as the peace component of peace education. The study recommends including the concept of peace and conflict resolution as an additional emphasis, as eighth emphasis in the science curriculum, and implementation of a peace and spirituality based science teaching and learning. Moreover, each content could be designed, exercise, uh, preparing exercise sections on the merits and demerits to students, so students can practice Gandhi's nonviolence teaching through the application of social science for social change. Therefore, peace education effort can be applied by implementing inquiry-focused science teaching, as Dewey emphasized, which requires subject connections, lived experience, and experiments following Tagore's method of nature. My incidental findings indicate that peace education in Bangladesh case, which is a multi-religious nation, can be taught through existing subjects such as Islamic studies and world religion. It is interesting to note that in secular school, Muslims and non-Muslim students, both groups are interested to take Islamic studies course. The reason is easy to learn, easy to get higher marks. This is one great way to learn the transcend thoughts of Islam, Geltang 2000, and its peace concept. Similarly, teaching peace through world religion can open another opportunity to teach peace education. This way, students of both streams can learn about each other's religion and the peace ideas. This transdisciplinary level of teaching through subject connections will make a difference in peace education effort. The peace education component should focus on the country's cultural and its conflictual issues as well. Literature reviews indicated that Bangladesh's socio-political condition is violent in terms of religion, gender, and ethnic conflict. Therefore, teaching peace, the curriculum planner and policymakers should be more careful selecting the areas, the important concepts that are useful for Bangladesh context. And finally, I would say students' voices are important to improve curriculum. Students narrated that they learn better when they are taught practically through collateral learning and the lived experience. Tagore, Gandhi, Dewey, and Miller's whole curriculum approach ensure that student-centered learning and subject connections are important. And inquiry-focused science teaching can be the vehicle for peace education. A fragmented curriculum contributes to conflict. Therefore, an integrated curriculum that brings together several subjects, including science around broad themes, could focus on peace education. Thank you.
Wonderful, Pamelia. Thank you so much. Once again, the little clap reaction, anyone who wants to join in. Pamelia, do you think you could unshare your screen?
Oops.
Perhaps at the top, I think you should be able to see.
Oh,
I think I can.
now it went to top.
Yeah,
So,
I think I can do it if you would like.
did I do it? I tried.
There, you got it.
Mhm.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much, Pamelia, and again to Lucy. So now I'd like to open the floor to any questions or comments that anyone may have. Feel free to use the raise hand function or to type it into the chat as you feel more comfortable.
I was really curious because it seemed like all your participants had really clear ideas of how this idea of the religious and the secular can actually come together in ways that were more productive for them. And I'm wondering, did you notice your participants? What kinds of moves did they make to enact these things that they saw that were possible? Did they enact them? Why or why not?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for your question. It's a good question. Students from secular background, they, what I say, they voiced out, you saw in the code, the girl, she has the perception, she knows that like, her idea is different to her mother. Her mother thinks religious way, this world is created by God and everything is by God. Whatever you say about science, she doesn't believe. So she said, my mother says this and that, so I handle myself because she's my mother, I have to respect her. So in that, she doesn't go for further argument, but she's interested to know more by herself. So what she does, she goes through videos, she goes through more science books, they handle themselves. So I can see there is a negotiation. Same about secular religious students. Even one student, he was telling that I don't like the, well, that we came from monkeys, that Darwinism, like that theory, revolutionary theory. I don't like that. So he was like in a very frustrated. Why it said so? But again, he was saying, I find it's difficult when I see that, like, Islam or Hadith explains that this world is, made within 6 days. I don't find like, there is similarity with school science and Quranic science. He said, what interesting thing that was remarkable to me. Um, the Quran should be reformed. It should be translated through Islamic science, focusing on Islamic science. That was his like comment, that he's thinking they're not learning from Quran directly because the way it is translated is not giving them better understanding. If Quran is translated based on in the light of science, the Quran would be more. He said, like, it can be appreciated and people will not misunderstand. So this is the way I can see that they um, they take action, and they have another action. What you said about the action, like if students know that there are violence outside, like on July 16th, 2016, there was a massive attack on foreigners, and they killed 16, 20 people on that day, ISP students there. urban and rural youths, they were engaged in this killing. So it was difficult to understand whether they are understanding or not. But when I talked to them, they clearly said, no, we can't kill foreigners or science believers. We need to know what they're thinking first. We can argue, but we can kill. So this kind of tolerance I can see, and the action what I have seen teachers discuss in secular classroom and seminar too. They talked about whenever this kind of occurrence happened and violence occurred, teacher, one science writer, he was stabbed. Just when I returned from Bangladesh, after the data collection, I heard the top science professor was stabbed. So it's ongoing. The problems is ongoing, but when I went to conduct that study, I could find that students are acknowledged, and teachers and both streams, they are taking some precautions, talking to students that we should teach our students what to do, how to respond to violence.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to ask a question? Just see we have about 5 minutes left, so feel free. Okay. I've actually have a question, and if there's no one just yet, for both Lucy and Pamelia, just to sort of get your I guess ideas on sort of implications for the future. Like your topics are quite distinct, but they have their similarities, I think, in how we can bring some change, you know, with the settler relations in Canada or peace and conflict issues in Bangladesh. And so I'm wondering, like, what would be like one takeaway perhaps, or one suggestion for teachers and how they can teach effectively for the future?
Do you want me to respond first? This is one important question, because the main reason I conducted this study from students' perspective, to know how they want to see their teachers to teach, how teachers should deliver the pedagogy, what they think. And I wanted to hear their voice. They clearly expressed that they learn easily from the action-based education. It means practical education. In a classroom, while you are like science is a complicated subject. If you teach through the book, it doesn't work. Reading book does not work at all. That's why I was amazed, like, we have misconception or opposite idea. I had that idea going to secular classroom. I thought they're going to teach the best, because in each classroom, they have a big projector and they have a big computer laboratory. Students are going there. And I thought they're learning more. But when I went to another school, it's kind of, contrast, I should say. It's in the same urban area. But that school, religious school, is a poor resources. They have nothing. Teachers are, both teachers are like, they are trained, they're from topmost university, they joined in both schools. But these teacher, religious science teacher, as they do not have any resources, they're using those natural resources, bringing from home and bringing something from garden to teach biology class, to show the part of the flowers, or demonstrating the living plants, diffusion or effusion. They're using all those like natural resources. They do not have one single laboratory. So it sounds that students are more happier here in a religious school, and they want that teachers should teach them practically. And if education is inquiry focused, especially science education, I should say, if it is inquiry focused and students facilitate by themselves, it shows that students enjoy the class, which was totally opposite in secular. So I recommend that the curriculum planners or um, policymakers, they should listen students' a voice. The strategy should be how students want to teach, see their teachers to teach, and that is the way curriculum should be designed. That's the way I feel.
Thank you, Pamelia.